Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Stefan here, the photo book guru, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to make your own DIY photo booklet or photo notebook. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so, and make sure to check that notifications bell to never miss a new video. If you like this video, also don't forget to give a thumbs up. So this is another episode in my DIY project videos, and I wanted to show you something much simpler than the previous hardcover and Japanese step-bound books, because I know they require a lot more practice and more investment, but this photo booklet is going to be very simple and almost everybody can do it at home who has a printer, and you can do it on a very low budget as well. So as you can see, the book here, it's basically a craft cover, a 28-page color photo booklet which is stapled in the middle. It has a very cute look. It's a very budget-friendly option for a small gift, or just for yourself if you want something handmade look or something arty and crafty. And I'm going to show you the step-by-step process. There's going to be timestamps in this video in the description below. I'm going to talk about the design process in the first half, so if you want to skip that and go straight to the making process, then follow the time codes below. So here's what you'll need. The very essential things you'll need are a software where you can create the design, A4 or letter size if you're in America, double-sided paper, ideally thicker than 100 GSM, A4 or letter size cardstock for the cover, staples and a needle to poke through the holes, a knife and ruler to trim the edges, and a printer, of course. Now here are a few more things that are good to have and are going to make your process much easier and faster, but they are not an absolute necessity and they cost a bit of money. So one of them is the long arm stapler, which is going to make it easier to staple booklets, a guillotine for a quick trim, and a bone folder, and a score easy, so a board where you can put score lines into the cover. Let's start with the design process. It's a very simple design process, but I want to show you some important steps. I'm using Affinity Publisher to design this photo booklet. You can use any software really for this one because it's so simple. Now, this book is the easiest to make when you print it on A4 sheets and fold them into half. And that's going to give you an A5 size, so 21 by 14.85 centimeter portrait style booklet. Of course, you can make it bigger in different sizes, but most of us have A4 printers at home. And if you have an A4 printer at home, then the easiest way to print this notebook is to use A4 paper and fold it into two. It also minimizes your need for trimming. So if we are creating an A5 booklet, we have to set up the project for an A5 booklet. So I'm going to come to File, New, and I'm going to select A5 and Create. I'm going to come to my document settings here, Setup, and I'm going to untick Facing Pages because it's not a lay flat book and it's not going to be printed in that style, so it doesn't really matter. I would like to see one page individually in this case. I don't need any bleed for this because my design is not going to go all the way to the edge of the book. I'm going to come to my spread setup and I'm going to set my margins to around 2 centimeters, so 20 millimeters on each side. And again, that's going to keep a nice wide border around the photos, makes it more elegant looking. So here is my border, and I'm going to create a master page so it's easier to drag and drop my photos into the book. So here is the master page on the left side, double click on it, and I'm going to insert here a frame to the full size of this usable area on the page. And I'm going to come to Properties, and I'm going to select Scale to Minimum Fit, which means that the photo is going to be the biggest it can be without any cropping, and align it or anchor it into the middle. Done. And now my master page is saved, so it's going to be much easier to start dragging pictures in. So I'm going to create 28 pages. Now it's really important when you create a booklet that your pages have to be in multiples of 4, because each A4 sheet is going to produce 4 pages. because each A4 sheet has 2 sides and each side can be divided into 2 A5 pages. So with every new sheet, you're going to get 4 new pages. So in my case, if I have 28 pages, that means I will need 7 sheets. So I'm going to add 27 more pages. And I'm going to be using Master A for these pages. So now I'm going to start dragging in my photos, maybe starting from page 4. And all I have to do is just drag and the photos are going to automatically get resized. And what I'm also going to do on some of these pages, I'm going to add some captions. So I'm going to come to my text tool, Old Town, and just going to use a lowercase, very simple font, Avenir. And I'm going to set the tracking to 100. So it's a bit more spaced out and put it to the middle. There we go. And then I can use this caption, just copy paste it onto my other pages. Now for the very first page, I'm going to create a title. I'm going to come to my text tools again, and I'm going to put here Bucharest and choose something nicer, maybe Dido, and make it slightly bigger. Put it in the middle, and let's add a line as well. Put this in the middle as well, and let's add the date. And I'm going to use the same font as for the captions. There we go. So I've got my title page and I can use the same font if I want some chapters in it or some dividers. And here we go. So here is the full book with the front cover, a little map, and then Old Town and my photos for 28 pages. Now, when it comes to printing, it's going to be a bit more complicated and it really depends on your printer and on your settings in the software that you're using. If we talk about a booklet and there's only one stapling in the middle, like in this book, that means that you have to know what order the pages are going to come after each other. Now, most software are going to have a booklet option when you export the pages or when you want to print. In my case, I've got the same. So if I come to print, I can come to document layout and I can select booklet. And in this case, as you can see, it already arranged my pages, so the first page with the last page and so on. So I'm going to show a graph here what I mean by booklet. If you create a booklet from scrap paper and you put page numbers in it, you will see which page is supposed to be on which side of the paper. So once everything is fine and I figured out the settings and I know how I have to feed in my paper, then all I have to do is press print. So once my settings are correct, I'm going to start printing the inside pages. Now for this, I'm going to use a 135 GSM matte double-sided paper. I wouldn't suggest using standard printer paper, something around 70-50 GSM, because it's too thin to print double-sided photos. You can print on it in a draft mode, which is going to put less ink on the paper, but then the quality is going to be worse. So if you want your pictures to be nice quality, then you have to use the photo setting on your printer, and that means that the page or paper has to be thicker, so ideally around 150 or higher. But then you also have to think about that if you use very thick paper, it's going to be very difficult to staple together and the book is not going to stay closed. My printer is not automatic double-sided, so once I print out one side of the sheets, I have to feed it back manually and print on the other side. Now, it really depends on your own printer. If your printer does it automatically, it's great. If it doesn't, then you have to play around a little bit to make sure that you know how to put back the paper to print on the other side, and you know how to print just the odd sides first and then the even sides. Once my inner page is printed, I'm going to print my cover. Now, for this one, I'm going to use a cardstock. Ideally, you should use something that's at least 200 GSM because you want that notebook or booklet to be protected by a thicker cover. Now, you can be very creative here. You can use colored paper, you can use textured paper, you can use craft paper like I'm using here. The reason why I went for craft paper is because it makes it look a bit more handmade and it has a nice feel to the booklet. The only thing I wouldn't suggest using here is a glossy paper or anything that has kind of a plastic coating on it, because it's going to be very difficult to fold the paper. So once I printed out my cover as well, I'm just going to assemble my pages, make sure that they are following the right order. and put the cover on top, double checking if I fold it into half is going to be going in the right order. So make sure you do this before you staple it together, because if you made a mistake, you can figure it out at this stage. The next thing I'm going to do is score the cover. Now this is not completely essential, but it makes the booklet look nicer. I bought this Score Easy thing on Amazon, and it's really handy when you try to make booklets or notebooks. It basically gives you guidelines in little grooves, and you can use a bone folder that comes with the Score Easy. I'm making one score line in the middle of the paper, and then I'm going to do one on each side at 0.5 centimeter apart, so 5 millimeters. And the reason why I'm doing this is again because the cover is going to fold nicer if the booklet is quite thick. When I'm done with the scoring, I'm going to put my pages together, making sure they are completely flush with each other. And I'm going to get my stapler. Now this stapler is a long arm stapler, so it's perfect for booklets. If you don't have any of these, by the way, I got this from Amazon, it was quite cheap, around 10-15 pounds. Then what you can do is pierce the holes with an awl or a needle, and then put the staples in manually into the holes and flatten them with a bone folder or your fingers. So it's totally possible without the long arm stapler as well, but of course it makes it much easier. Once the staples are in, I'm going to fold my booklet into two, making sure the edges line up nicely, and I'm going to use my bone folder to make sure it's nice and flat and to apply some pressure onto the spine. Once I'm done with the folding, I'm going to go to the trimming stage. Now again, this is not essential, but if you want your notebook to have a nice clean edge, then you should really trim it. I'm going to use a guillotine here because it's much easier, and I have one, but I know it's a bigger investment, so if you don't have one, I'll show you what you can do after that. So I put my notebook into the guillotine. I usually put a little bit of cardboard on top of my sheets to make sure it doesn't leave a mark on the top sheets, because once you put pressure onto the papers, it can leave a little mark. Then make sure everything is adjusted and trim, and voila, it's a beautifully smooth edge. Now if you don't have a guillotine, you can use a ruler and any kind of a sharp knife. I use a Stanley knife, and you have to basically press down the ruler very firmly, but the knife should be very gently gliding through the paper. So don't press on the knife, because then it's going to create a very messy edge, and it's also going to pull on or grab onto the paper. But if you use a gentle stroke with the knife and you're patient and you do it many times after each other, you can get just as a clean edge as with a guillotine, but it's just going to take a little bit longer. And now that the final stage is finished as well, let's have a look at the final booklet. Here is the cover, the front and back. And as you can see, the craft works really well with these kind of notebooks, and the photo as well on the front. Clean edges, very simple minimalist design inside, and the staples are going to hold it together. If you want, of course, instead of the staples, you can use stitching with a needle and a thread. It's really up to you what kind of method you use for binding, but staples are of course the easiest form. Now just bear in mind when you create a notebook like this, you can't have too many pages inside because staples can only hold so many pages. I would suggest a maximum of 50-60 pages depending on the staples that you use, and anything more than that is going to make the notebook very difficult to close, and the staples might not be long enough or might not go through easily. But if you just want a quick gift or something for yourself that's crafty, then these notebooks are a really easy way to turn your photos into photo books. If you have any more questions about this process, leave it in the comments, and also let me know if you would like to see any more tutorials. I'm open to ideas about bookmaking, photo bookmaking, and any kind of DIY projects.